there, Rick here. I wanted to do a review on this book that I bought at Indigo Chapters yesterday. I only read a little bit at the bookstore, so I'll have to do another review once I finish reading it. But this is the book here, okay? It's called A History of the Classical World, okay? The story of ancient Greece and Rome, okay? So Greece and Rome, okay, was the birthplace of, well, Western civilization. What I mean by that is that a lot of their, I guess, culture, the way they done things, they got passed down through the generations, and well, we still do a lot of the things that they used to do, okay, 100 years ago, right? Or actually more than 100 years ago. Inside the book, okay, what I found interesting was, okay, well, they were minting coins, right? And, the coins still look quite nice, okay, for the time, okay? It doesn't look as nice as, well, today's time, right? But, they still look nice, okay? Like on, one of their coins, okay, there was an elephant. I think the elephant with the raised tusk, I think it symbolized victory, okay? Anyways, it was a good omen, okay? And, okay, the author here was Elizabeth Weiss, okay? And, she does a good job of, well, writing this book. You have to remember, too, at Indigo Chapters, it's probably not easy to, have your books on their shelf, okay? Just because, okay, there's millions of books out there, just because, well, there's a lot of authors out there. And to have your book, in Indigo Chapters is, well, I was going to say it's quite a feat, right? You have to be a very good author to, have your book even in the bookstore of a place like Indigo Chapters, okay? I'm not sure if you'll be able to see it here, okay, but this is a vase from the time, okay? And you have to remember, okay, if you had a vase like this, okay, that was maybe passed down from, I guess, well, from family, right, or relatives even, imagine how much this would be worth, right? Just, well, in the hundreds of thousands, maybe probably even in the millions of dollars, because there's collectors out there willing to pay for, ancient relics like this, right? I'll see if I can find you a coin. Okay, I'll bring you up to you. Okay, I'll bring you up to the camera. So that's the vase. Okay, Rome was also very well known for their glass blowing too. So even if you have some of the glass blowing sculptures from ancient Roman time, it'd be worth lots of money. Okay, I'll tell you this one story. It was when my coworker Chris was in Richmond. He was working on a customer's home, and he was banging on the wall with a hammer. Anyways, one of the plates fell off the wall, and it broke in two, okay? And then, he said to the customer, the plate, wasn't too expensive, was it? And the customer said to him, actually it was. The plate was worth about $800. And he said it was from the Ming Dynasty. And, Chris, okay, he doesn't read a whole lot. He didn't really, understand the importance of that, period, right? And he asked me about it, okay? And I said, yeah, through the ages, okay, in China, different, families, okay, ruled China, okay? Like, okay, for maybe, one generation it was the Ming Dynasty, and then another 100 years, okay, it was the Song Dynasty, and it continued on. It's almost like the royal family uh, of Great Britain. Okay, um, they buy a lot of expensive jewelry, um, expensive china, for example, expensive relics, okay, from around the world, okay, and they store it at their palace, right? Um, it's almost the same with China, okay, what the different rulers of China done, okay, a long time ago. They bought, exquisite, um, China, um, anything of, you know, of value that symbolized status, okay, um, or that you were rich, right, and well off. So I explained it to Chris, what that, the importance of that plate, right? It was a important, relic of the time, right? And this guy, I heard he had roomfuls uh, of relics from China, okay, through the ages, and a lot of it was worth a lot of money, right? I don't know how he got his hands on so much, so much expensive relics from China. Maybe he lived in China for quite a few years, and then he knew somebody who had a lot of the relics, and he was willing to buy it and ship it back to Canada, right? And then bring it to Richmond, right? But it's almost like an investment, right? Because you have a lot of relics that's worth a lot of money. Also, too, I'll see if I can show you some of the coins, because it is quite interesting seeing the different things that was, the coins that were minted way back then, right? So it says here, okay, silver silver trichacum of Seleucus from Pergamon, 305 to 281 BCE. Elephants are prominent motif on the coinage of Seleucus. Eyewear, they serve as symbols of kingsmanship and victory. Yeah. Okay, so I'll show it to you what it looks like. See, that was their coins, okay, way back then. And you have to remember, okay, this was a long time ago, okay, because we're talking what, BCE, okay. BCE, I believe it was before Christ, okay. So even before Jesus, okay, appeared, in the modern world, but way back then, okay. This was almost 351 years before he arrived, okay. So it's quite amazing. I look at the coins, okay, and like I say, okay, the coins, of course, okay, they don't look as nice as today's age coin. You have to remember, this is a long time ago, and but you look at the coins, wow, they actually look quite nice, and it was probably interesting figuring out how they minted coins way back then, right? Because in today's age we would consider that very primitive. But imagine, okay, if you had somebody in the family that could, have passed it down through the generations, and sold it at some auction or something like that, right? Imagine how much you would get for a coin like that, especially if it was in a very good condition, right, or near mint condition. I could see it selling for millions of dollars. There's probably collectors out there that they would pay that much for it, right? Some of the other amazing things that they done way back then too was the architect. They talk about the aqueduct systems way back then. the aqueduct systems were bringing fresh water, um, to their cities, right? And I'll just show you the architect way back then. Okay, this is our system. Sometimes these stretch for like 50 miles, right? But just look at the architect, okay? Like, that was built out of brick, right? And it probably took a lot of, men and manpower to do, right? You have to remember, okay, they didn't have machinery back then, right? They didn't have these big cranes and, all this other, fancy machines that we have these days that make building a lot easier these days. And something like this, okay, I think a lot of other nations, okay, they didn't possess this sort of architect, in their society. And they just didn't have the engineers to build something like this too, right? But you look at it, okay. It looks like, okay, it's well built, right? It's not leaning to one side. It's not, it doesn't look like it's gonna fall down anywhere in the near future, right? It's very well built, right? And the Romans did, you see all the Roman type movies at the movie theaters, right? Like Gladiator, right? You see how they were, fighting their wars, right? You have to remember, for this time too, it was it was considered very amazing. Okay, back then, okay, I heard that the chariot system, okay, that the Romans had, it was considered their F-16 way back then, right? You have to remember, F-16 fighter, I believe it has at least 1 million parts in it, okay, which is quite amazing, okay? Imagine the mechanic, okay, working on it, he has to know 1 million parts, and, even to, service it, right? It's probably not an easy feat to do, right? He probably has to go to school for a long time, and, he still has to refer to books on, how to fix this or fix that, right? Or, do the maintenance work, change the oil on it or something, right? All the different oils it needs. But just to, look after it, okay? Because you have to remember, okay, F-16 fighter is worth, what, at least a few $1 million, right? So I'll probably do another video on it when I finish reading it. But it's a very nice looking front cover. Okay, if you look at the front cover, okay, yeah, it's a helmet, okay, from the ancient time, right? That a soldier would have wore, okay, because I can see that the helmet, if it comes down, okay, below his chin, there's another piece going down the center, I guess, to protect his nose, right? And of course, there's eye slits so he can see out when he's fighting, right? And it's made of metal too, right? Just in case, when you're swinging with a sword or somebody's throwing a spear, right? It protects your head a bit from being hit by a sword or a spear and maybe killing you, right?